Go ahead.
All right. Good afternoon and welcome to the Cedar Rapids Community School District Audit Committee for our June meeting. I'm Marie Novit, and we'll begin right now with the review and approval, hopefully, of the meetings from the May 19th, 2021 meeting. Any discussion? Hearing none, could I have a motion to approve the minutes?
This is Scott. I'll move.
Do I have a second?
Second. True.
I'm sorry, who was that? I'm sorry.
Well, Chad was one of them.
Okay, and I think Scott was the first, right? Okay, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Then moving on to our second agenda item, it is the review and discussion of the independent auditor's special activity fund agreement, agreed upon procedures for the audit that covered the period January 1, 2021 through March 31st, 2021. And I'm going to turn it over to Jordan. Did you join the meeting? I thought I saw Jordan come in, but maybe not. Chris?
Yeah.
Chris and also Sherry will be covering this part of the agenda. So who would like to lead?
I'm more than happy to, Sherry, if you just want to chime in when you want to.
That'd be fine. Okay.
Everybody got the independent auditor's report. It's in the or accountant's report. It's in the packet there. As we discussed previously, probably back in the January, February meeting, we did update the procedures a little bit on the spring AUP. Now that kind of all those activity funds are being tracked within the Grantwood system. So in previous years, we did look at, disbursements, which were no longer needed as that's kind of included in the audit process now and under the controls of the district now. So really the kind of the steps we did were we selected various receipts from the various middle schools and high schools, made sure they, were received, remitted appropriately within the district's policies. And then just did some general inquiries with the office personnel at each school to make sure they didn't have any concerns with theft or illegal activities, or were aware of any cash checks or gift cards that weren't deposited with the school district. So the latter, there was no concerns or anything that we have noted. We talked to each office bookkeeper at each school, and no concerns there. So I did put a presentation, or we usually hand it out. I know Dave sent that out just before the meeting here. Dave, do you want me to share my screen on that?
Yeah, if you can, try it. Yep. If you can't, I will.
Is this the presentation that will be given at the board meeting?
This only goes to the audit committee.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
So our second procedure there is we selected various receipts from the Grantwood Education Agency financial accounting system. We calculated the remittance and deposit lag, and we noted any exceptions when the lag time was greater than 3 school days to remit to the school or the bookkeepers, and then anything greater than 10 days for the bookkeepers to deposit within the school district. And then this next slide kind of shows we did have various findings throughout. As you can see, this is dating back all the way to spring of 2017, goes through fall of 2019. We did take spring of 2020 and fall of 2020 off due to COVID. There's just really no activity there to do anything. and then the spring of 2021 results. The main one was Jefferson there that did have 6 findings within the leg. And that was mainly, most of those were just related to multiple checks that were received at the school that didn't have a remittance date on there, so we could not verify what the remittance timeline was. So that's why we reported those as findings on that. Through our procedures and everything like that, a lot of these findings did relate to, the bookkeeper or the office personnel were on leave because of various illnesses or might have had COVID at that time. So the important thing to note was a lot, believe in all cases, they did have the checks locked in a secure location to when they were able to get back and deal with those remittances. So that's what that looks like. Sherry, did you want to add anything to that?
You covered it pretty well. I did have just a couple to add. One of our schools, Roosevelt, they were in the middle of a new bookkeeper, and they had a small check, and we confirmed that they could keep that in their safe at that time rather than until the new secretary was trained and ready to remit. So actually at the district, we didn't have an issue with that. Jefferson, like Chris said, had several. 4 of them were all connected to the activity director, to Mr. Dean. And when I reached out to Deb, the bookkeeper, she indicated that he had checks that were actually for entry fees, and he was holding them because of the weather. If the weather was such that the activity was canceled, he was just returning the checks. So we can revisit that procedure, but it was interesting to find out that 4 of those were all connected to the same activity.
And if I may, I don't think we've ever encountered this before, have we? Is it just the luck of the draw of what was reviewed?
The luck of the draw, maybe being in Grant Wood Finance, and also it could be such that the way that activities ran with COVID.
Yes. Yeah.
I know I said weather, but this was also during COVID time, not knowing what was going to go on. And I want to think maybe that they prepared, not knowing for sure, which would be the same as with weather. You would do that as well. 2 other of our Washington and Taft, I'm going to throw this in quick. Those both were related to yearbooks, and the yearbook process has now changed. That's all online. And we are seeing more fees and working with outside entities that going online. So some of this will take care of itself. When you see one, but yet you see a big old mark, you just have to take into perspective how many we're talking about.
And Sherry, if I may, when you said at present there is no procedure that covers the situation that occurred at Jefferson?
I should not have used those words.
Okay.
When money comes in, of course, it's always receipted in. I do not know where Mr. Dean was at the time when the checks were received. I did get 100% confirmation that they were locked up and they were secure. I guess I was alluding to, should we do this different? Should he always have these receipted and then we cut checks back out? That's something we could think about. Just for a discussion. I mean, I personally, if the checks are locked up, the event is canceled, there's a clear trail of what went on. 6 of one, half dozen the other.
And just so I understand, the checks were locked up in whose possession? In the possession of the bookkeeper or in the person who was in charge of the activity event?
In that case, I do believe they were in Jefferson High School in the office.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
I also had received the message from Deb that during that time, Jefferson, like a lot of the schools, they were very tight and they were limited coming in and moving around and under
Okay.
COVID
Okay,
restrictions.
thank you, Sherry.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I think what Sherry's alluding to, I think this may be a standard practice in some schools where they're holding it until the event to make sure it's going to go on. And so they don't have to turn around, deposit the money and turn around, write checks and issue them back out to the schools for a canceled event. And so that might be something we want to, or if we feel strongly, no, we want to deposit it right away and then issue checks back to the schools if it got canceled. But that might be something, because I think that's probably not uncommon from some schools on an event. And it may have been more of an issue or concern this year because of COVID, thinking, okay, is it going to get canceled because of COVID? Have an outbreak and they're like,
Which did happen. I mean, there
Yeah.
were.
yeah.
Yes.
And so, but I would not be surprised if you would go check with a lot of different school districts if that is a common practice, where they hold the money, make sure the event's going to happen before they deposit it. So,
Okay.
but that is not.
Jordan, did you want to continue?
That's all I had. That's just the couple findings within that second procedure. So if anybody has any questions, I would open it up.
Well, all right. Now, of course, when I ask questions and things, I want to clarify, I'm not doing it as the chairman of the committee, but just as myself. This year, we were thinking about when we were approaching this part of the audit, we were talking about what would we find having gone to the Grantwood system, correct? I mean, we knew that maybe things would be different. And I think, and anybody from the committee could jump in and correct me if my understanding is wrong, but we would then maybe next year look again and see, do we want to repeat the activity fund part of the audit? But even when we're talking about that, I myself failed to really understand that the effect of the COVID and the duration or whatever would continue. So I don't know when we would do it, but I would like to see us discuss next year if we want to continue in this part of it. Because I think it worked out nice. I mean, obviously, we found, what do they call, exceptions, not deficient, exceptions. And actually, I had thought, well, we won't have any because we'd had a new system and I assumed nobody was doing anything and we wouldn't be taking in money. So I don't know what the rest of the committee feels, but I'm glad you had the explanation, Sherry, because when I was reading the report last night, I was a little concerned, having seen some again. And I don't know if the committee shares the same reaction as I did, but I feel better having heard that explanation.
You know what, and what Chris mentioned about Jefferson, you have to take that. It was because they didn't have the data remittance written down. So that was an error, but it may not have been an issue of it was truly a lag time, but they just didn't have the data remittance necessarily listed. So even though there were 6, it may not have really been a lag. All of them were a lag time issue. It could have been just because they didn't have the receipt remittance date on it. And so, and from my standpoint, Maureen, I was not surprised we had some of these, especially in a pandemic when things are happening where, somebody could get sick or something like that. And it's just been sitting there and it could be a lag time on a deposit. I was glad to see all the other areas were fine.
Mhm.
The only thing was
Yes.
is lag time issues. No, every other issue area they was looked at, there was nothing noted. And the lag time, I was expecting some lag time issue because of the pandemic, playing into it because of, somebody could be gone due to, or they could have been, some of this could have been early on, like for example, before they even had school back in session,
Yes.
right away, everybody back in the building. And so, there was a lot at play. So I expected some. And when I first saw the report too, I was concerned when I saw 6 at Jefferson when I first looked at it. But then I read that, it's like, oh, it's, it may or may not. I mean, every one of them could have been a lag time, but we're not 100% sure if they were.
Exactly.
So.
And I can add a little more light on another one of those at Jefferson. It was a brand new coach. Deb did say, the bookkeeper did say that she had reached out when he started and let him know about the process. So be it, whether it was COVID, whether it was being new, but she will reach out to him again and remind him to get the money in a timely fashion.
Okay.
And there is something about when you do these, even if we, change things up again next year, that people know that we are sending out auditors to do some checking.
Yes.
I mean, that is, so they know that, and I do like that about, even though if we do it and don't find anything, if we continue on this way, because this is a watered down from what we used to do, just because all the other controls are there on the, on our normal audits and we're doing everything. That's why we don't have to do as much. But I do like the fact that they, know that, hey, an auditor is probably going to be coming and looking, and so that does, feel good to me about that. But could we do something different? Can we do this in addition to something else? Yes, we can, and we could have a more in-depth conversation about that. I mean, we could do some more internal controls, agreed upon procedures, especially with us going into a new system. And but the internal controls could be evaluating, and we will have some conversation with our auditors with regard to our internal controls with regard to our new system and how that's working. That will be something we will be having conversation with RSM to do that as well. And we can actually, and we're hoping to do that early on so that even before we get too far into the year, that we get those things taken care of if there was any concerns with how we restructure some stuff with the new rollout of the new software.
And to clarify, Dave, when you're talking about your new system, you're not, are you talking about the school districts or shift that's related to the Grant Wood taking over those functions? Right?
I'm talking about, because that was step one for our student activity fund. They were, like I say, they were with Kev for many years, and we were hoping to transition July 1 to Infinite Visions of last year. Okay. That did not happen. And July 1 because of the pandemic, but we still felt like we could pull in Kev, Student Activity Fund from Kev into Grant Wood for a year. And that was kind of the first step to get them away from the doing it in-house to at the building level to district level. But now, July 1, we're switching from Grant Wood accounting software to Infinite Visions. July 1. So, and things operate differently in the systems. Okay. And so we had to shake some things up in how we, some duties and whatnot for what people are doing because of the systems operate differently. So having that looked at, and we still have ability to set control limits in approval routes with the purchase order requisitions requests at different thresholds. We still have that ability to do that. And we have done some things to standardize and forced oversight, more oversight to some purchases at different levels than we did in Grant Wood, for instance. And now a building principal is, they may have been able to shift that responsibility to an assistant principal. Now they are in the loop on in the purchase order. So it's at least they're in that loop. And so we had made some changes there. But yeah, it operates differently. So what I'm saying is, having, and we are bringing in RSM on the front end to help us make sure that what changes we did make, they are okay. So yeah, we're okay. Segregation of the duties is still in place. We understand this and we're okay with that. And so, but that's what I'm referring to, because Grant Wood was a step one for student activity fund, and they're going to make a new transition into a new system next year as well. So it's basically a two-step process. We thought maybe they would get used to really knowing the account code structure, because in KEV, they really didn't use account codes per se. They use descriptions, for accounts. And now we have the 21-digit account code that they had to use in the Grant Wood, and that is continuing on in Infinite Visions as well. So,
well, I'm glad to hear, Dave, and I don't know if everybody recalls, but I think I'm correct here. Is I'm glad to hear that the building principal is being looped in, because that's one of the things we discussed, I believe, last year about the chain of responsibility for these kinds of things too.
Yes,
So
they're being brought into expenditures that exceed, I want to say, is it 250, Sarah? I think it's 250 off the top of my head. That's when they get brought in.
okay.
Correct.
Is that right, Sarah?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yes, I thought that's what it was. Yeah. So,
Does anybody else have questions for Jordan or for Dave or Sherry?
Maureen, I'm just, maybe, can we just recap where we're coming out with this? I think the discussion was, well, we don't know whether or not we need to do this again, whether we need to do it twice a year. Are we going to maybe pause this and discuss it further, or are we trying to make a decision today?
Oh, I apologize for not being clear there. That was just me talking. I don't believe we're making a decision today. Are we, Dave? That's not my understanding.
that would not be my recommendation to make the decision today.
No.
We would resurface this next year or in the fall and have those discussions more in depth.
Perfect. Thank you.
Well, and I know that might, when I think about it, it may muddy the water a bit, but it could be something that in the fall, when we're discussing the role of the committee, maybe that could be part of that discussion. I don't know. I'd have to also look at our charter too to see when this comes up. But thank you for helping me clarify that. I'm sorry for that confusion. Anybody else? Okay, it's a matter of, I guess, process or something. Jordan, we didn't receive a copy of your hard copy of that presentation you just put up on the screen. Did we not? We didn't receive that, did we, Dave?
It was
In
not
our meeting
packet,
packet?
but it was not in your meeting packet, but I did email everybody a copy of that just before the meeting.
Okay, so I missed it. So that will become part of our packet, right? There's nothing proprietary about it, right?
Yeah, no, there's nothing. It's just, I'm not necessarily, we don't really pull the whole packet together and post it. All we post is our minutes. So it's not somewhere that.
Somewhere in the bowels, we keep copies of our agenda.
Yeah, we do keep
correct?
it. Yes.
I mean,
Yes,
of the
we do.
packet.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, that's all.
But it's not somewhere
and
that
for-
somebody from the community
I
can go
just like-
grab. Yeah. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right then. Any other discussion here? No, hearing none then, I think, thank you, Jordan, Sherry,
You're welcome.
Dave, also for that. And I think we'll proceed then to the third item on our agenda. And we're going to review the highlights. And this is what will be presented to the board, right, Dave?
Correct. Yes. This document right here, I didn't put necessarily every one of the items in the board report, but I did most, they were represented in either in the presentation or in the handwritten report. But I can tell you the items that I don't think I put in there, because, like for example, I didn't say in the report there was no complaints from the tip line, received. I just, didn't have that in there. I didn't put in, we canceled, I put in the presentation. We did cancel our November was canceled due to COVID quarantine issues. But it wasn't, I didn't include every one of these items in the highlight, but most of these items are in the highlight, but not every one of them.
So those items listed on page 14 of the agenda, these will be the ones that will be bullet points for the board meeting, right? That we would
Correct.
present.
Yeah, one of the ones I added today, I'm going to share my screen. There we go. Can you see my screen?
I can.
Yeah. So item 6, one of the things that we didn't have last time I added was develop a procedure to allow community members to express concerns that otherwise would have occurred during the executive session at each meeting. That's what I added. That wasn't on the list. And thank you for Maureen for bringing that up, because that was added here. And we also included that in the report to the board and also the presentation. But these are all the items here. We also clarified the name. Paul Yokas will be replacing Danny Giffels on the audit team as in charge, and then Telbo is going to be the manager on the audit committee, who replaced Jordan on the audit committee. On the audit committee, not on the committee, but on our audit. And is there anything else that we think we wanted to add to this? This document right now in this form does not show up in the board packet, but it's when we get to the board next agenda item, that is what will show up in the board packet and then the PowerPoint. So if we wanted to add something that we think we missed, something that we wanted to add, I can add this to this. I have the board document ready to make modifications to it if we want to do that when we get to that, or the presentation, if we think we needed to add something else. So maybe we should go to the next agenda item so we can see the board report, and then I can pull that up, and you can kind of I can pull up the board report, and then you guys can kind of say, we don't have that. Yes, we want that included in the board report. Maybe I didn't include it. Does that make sense?
Oh, I see. Double check against it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'd be moving to the agenda item 4.
Yeah. So then this is kind of lead on, and this is kind of was tailored off of last year's report, and we did change this last line here a little bit from last year. This committee applicants for the membership are reviewed and elected by a majority vote of the audit committee. Is what we've done here. Here's our current membership for the audit committee. Then we go down here, talks about responsibilities, and our charter or matrix are at a certain link here. We said that we do a self-assessment. A copy of the self-assessment is available upon request, that we can get that out to them. Meeting minutes are the link to our site where the minutes are located. Now here is the highlights that I have included in the report. So we have the 3 new members. We had the more in-depth conversation regarding risk and testing for IT. We included the orientation meeting format change. Talked about the move the student activity fund. I did not include our meeting was canceled, but that is in the PowerPoint. I
Yeah.
did put that in the PowerPoint. Talked about the student activity fund changes. It's in both. Paused agreed upon procedures. We talked about that. That's in here. That was a fall, and then the spring we were the spring were modified. Agreed upon procedures were modified due to the shift from the of the accounting from CAB to Grantwood AEA. Let me see here. Oh, I didn't put in. We had listed here the. I didn't include in either one. If you want me to, we can add it. The annual report, our annual audit report, was delayed due to the release of the federal guidance from the CARES Act last year. We got out a little bit later than normal because of that. I did not include that, but if you want me to, I can add that back in if it was necessary to do that. I didn't really think that was a true highlight, other than because we, the board got it, and the board got it a little bit later too, and so I didn't include that.
My own feeling is we would not necessarily need if it was documented somewhere else that for the reason that it was delayed.
Yeah, we have it in the highlights report that we have here, but not in the board report. We kept that, so.
That's my feeling on it. As long as it's documented somewhere, it's fine.
Then we had both Maureen and Scott being reelected for chairperson and chairperson pro tem for FY 21-22. And the fact that Drew and Gordon will be, and I have Gordon, I think it's supposed to be misspelled there. I think I need to change that. Just now caught that.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Be Gordon, O-N, not A-N. All right, I'll make that change. Before I send that off.
And Dave, thank you for including the number of years that people served on the committee. I think that that's good recognition.
Yeah. So that is and then the ongoing activities. These are pretty much things that happen pretty much every year. We just had got confirmation that we received our awards for FY20. So that was brought up to FY for our CAFR certificate of excellence and our GFOA certificate. So that's 26 years in a row now. So that's been updated. But the rest of this is pretty much, things that happen on an annual basis that we include in that report. So,
Dave, thank you also for, you guys might have discussed this at the May meeting, which I wasn't there, but to include our suggestion about hiring an auditor. Thank you for that.
So now, if we're okay with that board report, I'll make the correction on Gordon's name. And is everybody okay with this report as is to move forward to include in the board packet?
Any discussion on this?
I'm good, Dave.
Okay.
Are we okay then?
All right. Do we want to have a motion to approve this report to go to the board?
Why don't we do that? Could I have a motion to approve the prepared report to the school board from the audit committee?
This is Scott. I can move.
Thank you, Scott. Any discussion on this? Hearing none. Second?
This is Janet. I'll second.
Thank you, Janet. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you.
So here is the presentation. Now, I did get confirmation earlier in the week that this will actually be our first board meeting in person.
Oh, we're going to do it in person. Okay.
Our board meeting, yes.
Okay.
This is the first one in how many months now? A long time. It is And we have, today we would have been in person. I apologize because there's a NASOT training, which all of our rooms are taken today for all these trainings. So we didn't have a place to meet. So that's why I ended up having to do a virtual one again today. But so here's the report. One of the things I figured, Maureen, that you would be here for that report on the 14th.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that's
I
fine.
didn't know if anybody else wanted to join her from the committee.
Dave, I can join.
Okay.
Is that Scott? Or who was that?
Yeah, that was Scott.
Thanks, Scott. Anybody else like to do it? It's easy duty, really. And if you've never been to a school board meeting, it is interesting, and you can leave after we're done. So, you're welcome to stay for the whole meeting too, but if anybody would like to, that's fine. Okay.
All right. So I'll put you down on here too.
Scott, can I get back to you and we'll split up the duties then?
Sure.
Okay, we'll do that. Save people doing that. Okay, good. All right. No further discussion on this. We've had our motion to go to the board with it. I'm looking at our time here. Dave, you're up next, right?
No. I'm just we're going through this,
I think here.
the PowerPoint.
Okay,
So that's why I'm just going down through the slides on the PowerPoint. It's everybody.
Okay.
So this is actually what we presented in person. The information on the other report will just be in the packet for the board. This is what you guys will present off of. So we got, I'll add Scott's name to this, and then we'll have the annual activities of the committee. These are we didn't list every one of the annual activities, but we just hit the high ones these are the types of things that we talked about annually. We talked about the review of the district audit report, agreed upon procedures, internal financial control of the independent auditors, and assess adequacy. That's always talked about annually. We have our annual orientation in October. We meet with our attorney twice a year. We review our property casualty and work comp insurance coverages. We review high-level risk mitigation associated with information technology. And we complete our self-evaluation for performance and effectiveness of a survey of our committee. So that is what we do on an annual basis. That's just the high level. Then the next slide is unique to 2021. And this is, we have listed here, a more in-depth discussion of IT risk and testing. Talk about the change in the orientation format. Use the budget information on the district website to guide overall finance discussions. To talk about, we did all the meetings were done virtually. And then the November meeting was canceled due to COVID-19 quarantine issues within the communications department. And the agenda topics were moved to December's meeting. We have developed a procedure to allow committee members to express concerns that otherwise would have occurred during the executive session of each meeting. We put a pause to the fall agreed upon procedures and redesign for the spring review of the student activity funds. And I guess we could probably strike this one because, yeah, we can strike the last one or combine the last one with develop procedure.
yeah. Yes, Dave, I should have caught that. I thought we should include it because it's in our charter that we have that we have the executive and we have prepared a way of dealing with that. So I thought
we can
was good
actually
for the committee to show that we have that in place.
Yeah, we can just change this to the end, say due to virtual meetings, executive session, no district staff or candidate discussion with external auditor, and it means did not happen. However, we did develop a procedure to allow members to express their concerns.
Yeah,
And so that way we can just add that to this one, and I can scratch this one. I'll change that to add that, basically sentence, something similar to that, if everybody's okay with that.
Okay.
Then we go in here, we highlight, we have the 3 new members, Jason, Janet, and Chad. Our chairperson pro tem for this year, and then for next year, reelected, both of those positions. We have a recognition of Gordon and Drew that are rolling off the committee, and Gordon is 4 years, and Drew is 3. And then talking about the change in our audit team for this upcoming year, this year's audit. Paul Yokas will be in charge. And I do have that spelled correct. Is Chris still on or not?
Let me check real quick.
That's what I had written down on my notes, but I may have wrote it down wrong.
Dave, should we mention that Chris is going to stay on as partner or senior manager or whatever that is, just to show that there's some continuity?
Yes. Yeah, and I'll just say the next sentence, and Chris will be, is that right, senior manager?
Yes.
Okay.
Yokas is with an A.
Okay.
Y-O-K-A.
Asked. All right, I'll make that change. So in all areas, because I think I have it written in a couple different places. Okay. Okay. And then here's our recommendations. We still have on the list here an internal auditor, either full-time or contracted service provider for internal auditor. And then this is the from our conversation in the last meeting, consider expanding the audit committee charter to include other areas of risk such as facility safety. And that could open up for other areas as well, but at least, we put it out there that we are looking at our charter. And if we do make a change, obviously that charter then goes to the board for their approval.
that's what I like including that there, Dave. I mean, at first I thought maybe this is premature, but since the board, we can't do anything without their approval to the
Correct.
charter.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good.
And that's it. And then the questions page. So
Okay.
is everybody okay with this? So for those couple different changes, and I can make that change. I can, like I said, I'm going to add Scott to who's going to be on the presenters, and then I'm going to scratch this. Develop a procedure to allow community members to express concerns, and add it a sentence to the last item here, and to encompass that, and then correct Gordon's name on the other document. So
Okay.
So Dave, this is
add Chris. So
Dave, I just have maybe a semantic question for the group.
Yeah.
I don't know that we're necessarily considering expanding at this time. I think we were considering adjusting. And I know that that's just a semantic thing, but I don't know that we're all necessarily on board with expanding at this time.
okay, how about consider and expanding and or adjusting?
Yeah.
Maybe it's expanding or adjusting. Maybe it's not and or adjusting current charter.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
All right.
And if any questions should come up from the board, I mean, it is something we just haven't discussed. Yeah.
Okay.
Dave, would you like a motion to approve this? I mean, we approved what was going to the board.
I don't think we need this one. I will make, this is slight modifications, but I just want to make sure this is, you guys are comfortable with it because you guys are going to be the one doing the presentation on this. And I'll have it to the board, and then it will be ready for it to be brought up and shared at the board table.
Dave, could you provide Scott and I a copy of the final?
Absolutely.
Thing that goes to the board? Thank you.
Yep.
Good. You know, and I really want to thank the committee now, because when I look at this list, I mean, I'm really proud of the committee that we're no different than anybody else in the district, because I think everybody just plowed ahead, but we really got what we're supposed to do done and actually found more things to do. So I'm really proud of the work that you all did, and the attendance at the meeting was really something too, and I really appreciate it. All right, then. Any other discussion on this? Okay, I have to say, Scott had such an efficient meeting. I noticed from our last board minutes that you were done a half an hour early. So now I'm on notice. I have to keep us moving here. Dave, I think you are up next.
Yeah. Like I said, we didn't have any complaints at all. And then we had no comments from our last meeting, and we don't have financials. We just maybe have gotten closed like a day ago, so we don't have any financial reports at this point in time to share. But I do want to take this opportunity because this is our last time. I was really bummed not to be able to meet in person because, some of you may have never got to meet Drew, you never got to meet the new committee members in person, or the new committee members haven't got to see any of our team in person this year. It's been a very odd year, to say the least.
Yes.
And I do really thank Drew for his years of service. It's been great having him on this committee. And you will get a certificate, Drew, for your participation on the committee. And I do want to wish you all the luck moving forward as well with CRCST and your role there. And we really appreciate all your hard work on this committee. So
Absolutely.
Thanks a lot, Dave. Appreciate it.
All right.
So then this is it. So our next meeting, for Scott and for Maureen is Monday, the 14th.
All right.
And our board meeting starts at 5:30. And
we're usually not far down on the agenda either. Scott, you've not been to one, right, with us before when we've done these?
Well, first time.
Okay. So usually I'm not going to ask Dave where we'll be because it's probably not, but we're usually pretty early in the agenda.
yeah, and I just don't recall off the top of my head, but I can get you a copy of the agenda. So
But it's online, right?
It will be, yes.
Okay.
It'll probably be there. Probably Friday. It probably should show up online. So
Okay.
yeah.
And at this point, I would also continue to encourage you to, if you have to fill out the meeting evaluation. When we meet in person, you're not allowed to leave the room until you've done it. That's not true, but yeah, it's just easier to do when we've met in person. And Dave's right. It is kind of, the committee is different in person. It's just, I've been very pleased with how it went. I had some concerns this year, but I really look forward to meeting in person. And I just want to throw something out, and I don't know whether we can continue to do it, but I mean, since we have to rely on business people from the community to continue our work, is that something we may want to discuss in the future? Do these virtual meetings work out better for people that have to leave the office? Is it just better to stay at your desk? It's not on the agenda, We don't have to discuss it. I'm just throwing it out. And I'm sure IT is probably ducking, not happy that someone mentioned it, but it has worked out really well. So does anybody else have anything?
I do have one other thing to share real quick. Both the new committee members, Angela Doctor and Stephanie Overby, that we approved last meeting, they have both agreed to serve on our committee. So just want to let you know that.
Perfect. Okay. All right. Barring any other discussion, could I have a motion for adjournment?
I'll make a motion. This is Jason.
Thank you, Jason.
And this is Scott. I'll second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. And I want to thank Justin too for continuous support he gave us this year too. Thank you very much for your time. Scott, we'll see you Monday.
Sounds good. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.